The serpent in the Bible. Now, the serpent in the Bible is renovated as evil because in Genesis chapter 3, the serpent told Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which God forbid them to eat from. So because of this, the serpent in the Bible is seen as a deceiver. Now, from this chapter alone is what a lot of religious people are basing their serpent hatred on. Regardless of the fact that the serpent was seen as the highest divinity on the planet way before the Bible was even thought of, yet and still these people insist that the serpent is the epitome of evil. But the truth is that there is actually a deeper meaning behind the serpent in the garden, and by decoding Genesis chapter 3 we are able to get a much deeper understanding of the true meaning behind the serpent. So now in the book, The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom, it says that the Gnostics viewed the serpent in Genesis as a hero and not a villain. As by the serpent persuading mankind to eat from the tree of knowledge, the serpent had led mankind on a spiritual journey, as in order for you to start on your quest for knowledge, you must leave the realm of ignorance. As the Garden of Eden represents ignorance, as ignorance is bliss, hence why it was a paradise. As in the Bible, Adam and Eve had all of their needs met, but they had to be obedient and unconscious. So mankind left ignorance to start on the quest for knowledge to obtain the hard-earned fruit of increased consciousness. So this shows you how the story of Genesis 3 is simply an allegory or a metaphor. But this is further ensued based on the fact that from a scientific standpoint, a serpent cannot talk. So how does an animal that cannot talk even have a conversation, let alone deceive someone? Also, a serpent does not have ears, nor do they have eardrums. But the illustration given in the Bible is that the serpent was able to understand what God said to Eve, being that they were not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge. But scientifically, a serpent doesn't have external ears. So the way a serpent hears is through sound vibrations that vibrate its body. Then these vibrations reach its jawline, which then make their way to the serpent's inner ear structure. So this is why a serpent hunts on the ground, as they are able to pick up the sound vibrations through the sand and soil, and they are able to determine where the sound comes from and how far it is. So now with that being said, if the serpent doesn't have an eardrum or external ears and only hears through sound vibrations that vibrate its jawline, then this means that a serpent isn't able to effectively perceive speech, as it is only receptive to sound vibrations that vibrate its body to know where a sound is coming from, but not enough to be able to understand speech. So how is the serpent in the Bible able to understand that God said that Eve is not allowed to eat from the tree of knowledge, let alone be able to hold a conversation with a woman? So this again proves that the story in Genesis is simply a metaphor and not actually a real event. Furthermore, in Genesis 3, it says that because the serpent told Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge, the serpent was cursed above all livestock and from now on had to crawl on its belly. But there is also an esoteric meaning behind this as well, as the serpent in the garden represents the primordial life force energy at the beginning of creation, and the fruits on the tree represent this life force in a condensed form. So when Adam and Eve ate from the tree, they had to amass physical bodies in order to enjoy the taste of solidified fruits, and the limitations that comes with a physical body is the experience of pain and also life and death. But when it comes to the serpent being cursed to crawl on its belly, this is because Adam and Eve now had physical bodies, so the serpent had to descend from the tree of knowledge and condense into vegetation and solid ground, so that way mankind could be nourished. Furthermore, the serpent in the garden could also be viewed as the Kundalini, and the serpent positioned on the tree of knowledge would be symbolic of higher consciousness. And the serpent being cursed to crawl on the ground would be symbolic of the Kundalini's descent into the root chakra, where it lays dormant. as the root chakra is associated with the earth element. So as you can see, this is yet another metaphor, and the serpent in the Bible is not actually evil. But what's funny is that you have these people out here who claim to be scientists, but yet they are taking the events in the Bible so literally when they are simply allegories. Also, the Hebrew word for serpent in the Bible is nakash, but the word nakash can function as a noun, verb, or an adjective. Now the noun means serpent, but the adjective means shining one. And an adjective is what you use to describe something. So the serpent being described in the Bible is not actually a literal serpent, but instead it was a shining one. So this further proves that the serpent in the Bible is actually referring to a shining life force energy that permeates through all living things. But what's even more interesting is that in Genesis 3 verse 8 it says, "Then the man and his wife heard the sound of the Lord God as he was walking in the garden in the cool of day, and they hid from Lord God among the trees in the garden." So it says that God was walking. So this means that God has legs. Also it says that they hid from Lord God. But if God is the all-knowing and the all-seeing, then how do you hide from God? But then you might say that this is just another metaphor. But no, it can't be, because this is Genesis 3 verse 8. And by now, Adam and Eve have already eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is why they had the discernment to know that they had done something wrong, hence why they tried to hide. But also by them eating from the tree of knowledge, Adam and Eve had amassed physical bodies. So in Genesis 3 verse 8, Adam and Eve are already in physical form. So the events taking place in Genesis 3 verse 8 is what is taking place on the physical. As you can hide from a person who has physical eyes, as physical eyes are not all seeing. Also, you can hear a person who has physical legs as they make a sound when that person walks. So if God was walking and they hid from God, what does that mean? So this proves what I said in my question and answer video, being that once Earth is created and the life force is condensed into physical forms, God does in fact come down and check it out. But with all of this information right here means that the whole Bible needs to be re-evaluated, as the serpent in the garden is not even a literal serpent. It is referring to a shining life force energy, and the God in the Bible has legs. So what does that mean? But see, the whole Bible has its beginnings in Genesis. But if the events in Genesis have been so heavily misinterpreted, then what does that say about the rest of the book? But the scary part is that there are a group of individuals out here who are basing their whole existence on the Bible. And they are even going as far to say that the people spoken about in the Bible were real people that existed. But if the beginning of the Bible is literally based in metaphor and allegory, then what does that say about the other people mentioned in the Bible? So somewhere down the line, somebody was bamboozled. And rather than come to terms that they have been bamboozled, they continue to teach their distorted doctrine on the streets. Lastly, you have people out here who will pull the argument about serpents eating meat. The reason why they do this is because they don't actually have any other way to oppose the truth about the serpent. So they will take the literal approach and say that serpents eat meat, even though when referring to the serpent in this context, we are speaking about the Kundalini energy, which is not actually a serpent, but was likened to a serpent because of its nature. But I know that these people know that. But instead, they resort to using petty arguments to validate their points. But again, they do this because they don't want to acknowledge that maybe their doctrine has flaws, and maybe their doctrine is not as perfect as they think it is. So my message to those people is to drop their ego and re-evaluate their doctrine. Alright, so let's go to the next one. The truth about God. Now, a lot of religious people believe that God is a man in the sky who governs this reality and watches over them. They also believe that this God will punish them if they do bad deeds and will bless them if they do good deeds. Due to this concept, it has created an interesting paradox where these people actually fear God. They fear the being who they believe to be the merciful and a forgiving God. Some of these religious people are even going as far in saying that the son of this God will crack the sky and come back to earth with an army of angels to save them. Interestingly enough, they don't know when he will get here or where he is coming from. All they know is that he is coming. But as I have mentioned before, is that a lot of these religious people will say that God created earth, but then they will say that God is out there in the cosmos. They don't know where, but they just know that he is out there. But my question is, why does God have to be out there in the cosmos? If in the beginning of creation the only ingredient was God, then earth must contain God, as earth is the product of God. As God can't create earth and not be present on earth. Because if you liken God to an artist and earth is God's artistic creation, then based on that fact alone, God would have to be present within his creation. Because an artist who creates a piece of artwork will leave his signature, so you know that he did it. Or due to the nature of the artist's work, you will know who did it based on the style of art or the specific artist's traits. So God would also be present on earth, as God is omnipresent, so therefore he is everywhere and within everything. So God is present within nature or nature. This is why the Egyptians deified the sun and the animals, as they knew that those were manifestations of God, meaning that the principles that they embody are aspects of God. But if there was a God in the sky, then why hasn't he shown up yet? Because if you say that God is your father, why hasn't this God made himself known? This God whom you call father has not even tried to contact you or come to see you. But see, if your father in real life did that, we will call him a bad dad. So what does that say about God, that he hasn't made himself known and revealed himself to his children? But see, God is not a bad father, as God is on earth and has always been on earth. It's just that you people are too blind to see it. Also, a lot of religious people will argue that God is like gravity, and the same way that you can't see gravity but it exists is the same way that you cannot see God but he also exists. But see, that is not the same thing, as the difference is that scientists can actually tell you where gravity originates from and how gravity works. But you religious people can't tell me where God actually is or how God works. You tell me I should fear God, but then you tell me that God is the merciful. But how do you fear the merciful? So the question is, why do we have to believe in God? Why do we need to believe in a man in the sky when God is on earth? So you don't have to believe in God, as I can show you God. See, these religious people can't say that, as they expect you to just believe. But what I am saying is that you don't have to believe anymore. Come with me and I can show you God. So let's take a trip down to the Giza Plateau and let's take a look at the Great Pyramids. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So my point here is that why do we have to believe that there is a God in the sky when we have physical archaeological evidence that gods walk this earth? But I am not here to debunk the God concept, as it is simply a belief and doesn't need to be debunked. Also, I am not here to disprove God, because you can only disprove facts. You can't disprove a belief, which is what this is. But I myself do not believe that there is a man in the sky watching over me and dictating my every move. Meaning that if I am good, he will give me blessings, and if I am bad, he will strike me down with lightning and give me curses. I believe that if I am good, I will attract my own blessings based on the law of attraction. And I believe that if I do bad things will happen to me based on the law of cause and effect. So I understand the laws and principles that govern this reality, which are the true laws of God. But see, this is where religion comes in, as religion itself is not bad. Religion is spirituality that was created for a people whose consciousness would have degenerated to a point where they wouldn't be able to understand high metaphysical concepts such as universal law. So rather than understand the law of attraction, they will say that God has blessed them for being good. Or rather than understand the law of cause and effect, they will say that God has punished them for being bad. So religion was created for a people who would have degenerated so much that they need the concepts of God to be made so simple that they could grasp it. But once you reach a higher level of consciousness, you are supposed to be weaned off the God concept. As when I was a child, I used to believe that there was a God in the sky watching over me and dictating my every move. I also used to pray to this God. But as I started to do more research and began to raise my level of consciousness, I realized that this God was simply an individualized manifestation of much deeper spiritual concepts. So the truth is that there never was a man in the sky. That is simply a dumbed down version of high metaphysical concepts, which are principles and laws that govern this reality. But then you might say, Tahuti, what about those other people who understand universal law, but they also believe in God? Well, see, this is a common occurrence that I like to call the God withdrawal. This is where these people have been believing in God for so long that they are now emotionally attached to this God and are unable to let go. So even though they are aware of universal law, they will still continue to individualize God to ultimately appease their emotions. But after all of this, if you still want to believe in God, then that is fine. But you should be aware that it is simply a belief and that it is not factual. So with that being said, religious people should not be trying to convert other people to their religions. I am speaking to all religious people. Stop trying to convert people to your religions. You can't convert people into a belief system. As in order to convert someone, you need facts, not just belief alone. So you can't expect someone to follow your belief system when you don't provide them with the facts. So that is the only problem with religion, is when religious people try to convert other people into their belief system. For example, a person's favorite color may be red, and another person's may be blue. But imagine if the person who liked red was trying to convert the person who liked blue to instead like red. But see, you can't do that, as everybody has a choice to believe whatever they want to believe. You can't force people to follow your belief system if they don't want to. Some religious people will even go as far in saying that their belief system is the only belief system, and that if you don't follow their belief system, then you are not following God. Again, this is the problem with these religious people. They don't understand that it is just a belief, and there is no such thing as the best belief or the most truthful belief, as it is just a belief. So religious people need to understand that their religion is just a belief, and they should stop trying to enforce their belief onto other people. So now, this brings me to the Hebrew Israelites. I have spoken about the Hebrew Israelites before, but I think now is a great opportunity to express more of my concerns with the Hebrew Israelites, as these people are a prime example of a belief taken too far. As these people don't just believe that there is a man in the sky, but they also believe that this God in the sky hates white people and that his son will come back to save them. But they are basing all of this on the Bible. These people live by the Bible. But see, we must question the intelligence of someone that would think that a book that was given to them during slavery by a man who spent 400 years trying to take away their history would be the same book that contains their most accurate history. We must also question the intelligence of anyone who would base their whole existence on a book when they don't even have the original manuscript for that book. As for all they know, that book could be corrupted, or because they don't have the original manuscript for that book. But see, them not having the original manuscript shouldn't be an issue, as the Hebrew Israelites are the chosen people of God. So if they are the chosen people of God and they are the children of God, then it should be no problem for them to write a new Bible. Because if they wrote a new Bible, it would still be the word of God, because they are the chosen people of God. But with that being said, why have the Israelites not written a new Bible yet? Why have they not published a new Bible which works in their favor? As right now they are literally still using the exact same Bible that was used as a tool to enslave them. For example, some Hebrews will say that the Bible is their book and that the Bible is speaking about them. But if that is so, why is it that every race of people can find themselves in the Bible? Why is it that a majority of the scriptures in the Bible can be interpreted in so many different ways? So in order to counteract this, the Hebrews should have written a new Bible by now. But I am not bashing the Bible, as the Bible does have some good wisdom in there, such as the book of Matthew. There is wisdom in the book of Matthew. But my point is that by now the Hebrews should have grafted a new Bible that just has the wisdom but minus all of the folklore and fiction. As I don't care about Noah's Ark, I don't care about the flood, as what does that do for me? Fair enough if it was just mythology, but these Hebrews are passing off these events as if they were real historical events. So again, I don't care about all of the fiction, just give me the wisdom. So obviously, the reason why these Hebrews have not written a new Bible is because they are emotionally attached to that book and they believe that it is holy and that God physically wrote it. Now, I want to show you an example of how a belief can be taken too far, where a person becomes so emotionally attached to a book where they believe everything that is written in that book, regardless of how wild and crazy it may seem. So let's take a look at this example.
Do you believe that a man is going to come from the clouds with an army? A man is going to literally come out the sky from the army and free our people. Do you really believe that, brother? And why?
I'm going to give you one more. Not only do I believe it, you understand, but I use the rest of my life to teach it. To teach, according to the Bible, a black man named Jesus Christ with white woolly hair afro gonna come out these clouds right here and save black people. Because according to the Bible, that's the only solution there is. We turn to every avenue, like I know Zaryak been tearing up the conscious community. The conscious community been around trying to save black people. Christian churches, every religion, every philosophy on the earth. But there's one thing that we never turn to. There's one thing that had been here the whole time, we never turned to it, and that's that Bible. So that I do believe it, and I give my life for it on that belief.
Now, hold on, one more thing. Now, you know, people out there will look at us and say, now, we are grown-ass men, and we still believe that a man from the clouds is going to come out and save us. What do you say to that, brother? I mean, are you saying that we have lost our way, we have lost our spiritual fight or something like that? What happened to us as a people that we don't believe in that?
Right, I'm gonna tell you, okay, us as a people, we believed in a lot of things. We believed in Farrakhan, right? We believed in Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson. I'm gonna tell you something, we built them pyramids. You understand? We, the Hebrew Israelites, we built them pyramids. Egypt was built off your and my ancestors' slavery, hard bondage. You understand? It was built off slavery.
Christ coming back ain't no different to us. That don't sound strange to me. Christ coming back. He's going to crack that sky with 200 million black angels. And when I say crack that sky, the Bible say that everybody is going to see Christ when he comes back. And the reason why it says everybody, not that everybody's going to see him, but that army that he's coming with is going to surround the planet Earth.
Okay, so now where do we start with this? Okay, let's start with the notion that slaves built the pyramids. But see, it is already a known fact that slaves did not build the pyramids, because if slaves built the pyramids, how is it that modern man with modern technology is still unable to rebuild them? How is it that with all the money, resources and intelligence that modern man has, he is unable to replicate the Great Pyramid, let alone move one of the megalithic stones? So if slaves built the pyramids, then that would mean that they had a higher intelligence than the so-called white men of today. But the so-called white man of today is ruling the planet, and a slave doesn't rule, hence why they are slaves. So if these slaves were more advanced than the current ruler of this planet, then how were these people slaves? Because surely if they can construct a pyramid, then they will be smart enough to not get themselves enslaved in the first place. So that alone proves that slaves did not build the pyramids, as these Hebrews say that they were the slaves that built the pyramids, but I have just shown you that it is logically impossible for slaves to build a structure that the current ruler of this planet can't even construct. But now when it comes to Jesus Christ coming back, in order for Jesus Christ to return, we must first prove that he actually walked this planet in the first place. But yet to this day it has not been proven. But it will never be proven, because Jesus Christ is a metaphor for the Son. That is all he ever was. But then you will have some people who will pull the argument and say that as above, so below. So if there is a sun in the sky, then this would also be a reflection on earth. So based on that, they will say Jesus Christ walked this earth. But what's interesting is that Jesus Christ is not the only deity that is a metaphor for the Son, as the god Heru from Egypt is also a metaphor for the Son. But if you use as above so below to prove that Jesus Christ walked this earth, then with that same logic, Heru also walked this earth. So a falcon-headed man also walked this earth, and this falcon-headed man is going to crack that sky with an army to save our people. Now do you see how ridiculous that sounds? But this is no different to what these people are saying, as these people are taking what is clearly mythology and trying to make it seem like they were real events. But see, I myself deal with metaphysics, so it would be hypocritical of me to just dismiss their belief without giving it some thought. So let's test the validity of their belief. So now, if you believe that Jesus Christ is going to return, then the question is, can you at least scientifically tell me how this will happen? Because for this to even be a plausible theory, you would have to at least tell me where he is coming from and how he is going to get here. For example, what planet is he coming from? What star constellation is he coming from? What dimension is he coming from? How long will he be here for? When will he arrive? And what exactly will he do once he gets here? Another important thing is that if you say that Jesus Christ will come from beyond our earth, then this means that he is an extraterrestrial. So the question is, what extraterrestrial race does Jesus Christ belong to? But you can't just say that he is black, because outside of the physical, we are not black. We are only black in the physical. So outside of the physical, Jesus Christ will not have skin like bronze and white woolly hair. So what extraterrestrial race does Jesus Christ belong to? Is he reptilian? Is he Andromedan? Is he Arcturian? So now, if you cannot answer any of the above questions, then the whole idea of Jesus Christ returning doesn't even qualify to be a theory, but instead it is just a belief. Because if you cannot give a scientific breakdown pertaining to his return, therefore it is just a belief. Also in the video, the other Hebrew who was with Tazariak said, believing in the return of Jesus Christ is no more crazy than believing in Farrakhan, Al Sharpton, or Jesse Jackson. But see, those are real people that you can touch. But we don't even have an archaeological record that Christ ever existed. So how are you going to compare fantasy and fiction to a physical human being? So now I know why they rarely let that other Hebrew in front of the camera, as he is clearly nuts. But there is also a contradiction here, because these Hebrews will talk about the white man being the devil, but yet the so-called white man is also waiting for the return of Jesus Christ. So how can you put a separation between you and the so-called white man when you are both waiting on the same God to come and save you? But one thing we need to understand is that these Hebrews are 501c3, which is a law in the United States that gives certain religious groups tax exemption. But the reason why this is important is because everything you buy has tax on it, and whenever you get your wages from your job, they are also taxed, and this tax money goes to the so-called white man. But these Hebrews are tax exempt. So the tax money that they would normally have to pay out, they don't have to pay it. And it is the white man's law that gives these Hebrews that tax exemption. So essentially, these Hebrews are being paid by the white man. But the reason why this is important is because this is why you will never see these Hebrews publicly concede and admit that their doctrine is flawed. And this is why they will say with a straight face that they believe that Jesus Christ will come back and save them. Because for these Hebrews, Jesus Christ literally puts food on their table. Jesus Christ puts the clothes on their back. The belief in Jesus Christ is how these people make their ends meet. So they ain't giving up their Jesus Christ for nothing. So really, these government Hebrews can't be trusted because they are literally being paid to stick to that belief system. But the second question that we must ask ourselves is, knowing that these Hebrews will stick to their doctrine based on the fact that they are literally being paid to stick to it, why is it that all of these debates that have taken place have been against these government Hebrews? Because if these debates were about progress and solutions, then wouldn't it make more sense to debate a group of Hebrews who have nothing to lose rather than a group of Hebrews who have their whole lives on the line? Because they are literally being funded by their belief. So really, these Hebrews are disingenuous, and black people really need to understand what is going on here. But these Hebrews don't actually believe that a man is coming from the sky to save them. They choose to believe this because they say that all of the other prophecies in the Bible have come true, so why shouldn't the prophecy about Jesus Christ be any different? So they are basing their whole faith in the Bible on the prophecies. But see, the Bible is not the only thing that has made accurate predictions. Because the TV show Simpsons also predicted 9/11. So does that mean that black people should be following Simpsons? Does that mean that Simpsons has the solutions to black people's problems? Hell no. But another thing is that these Hebrews don't even have the original manuscript for the Bible. So how did they know that those prophecies were in the original Bible? But see, it goes even deeper than that, as the so-called white man had a council of Nicaea where he literally sat down and dissected the Bible. But who's to say that the white man didn't also plant some prophecies in the Bible? Because one thing you need to understand about the white man is that he's a contingency specialist. Meaning that he plans everything in advance and he calculates it in such a way that it only comes into fruition during specific circumstances. For example, 9/11 was planned many years in advance, so he already knew that it was going to happen, hence why he was able to predict it in his TV shows. So with that being said, who's to say that the white man didn't plant those prophecies in the Bible to create an illusion that the Bible is foolproof? But what further ensues that those prophecies were planted by the white man is based on the fact that all of those prophecies pertain to the white man. For example, the Bible prophesies slavery, but slavery worked in the favor of the white man as he was the one who had a defining role in slavery. Black people were involved in slavery, but he was the one who was running it. But if you understand that the white man is a contingency specialist, who's to say that the white man didn't plan slavery in advance, or that he knew that black people were going to be enslaved and taken on ships? So with that knowledge, he could then plant that in the Bible and make it seem that the Bible has all of these great prophecies. So now, for the prophecies in the Bible to be valid, you're going to have to show me a prophecy in the Bible that doesn't involve the white man. You're going to have to show me a prophecy that only involves black people. Which would mean that there is no way that a white man could have planted that in the Bible. Because slavery involves white people. In fact, the white man had a leading role in slavery. But see, an event is not defined by the participants, it is defined by who's running it. And it was the white man who was running slavery. So in other words, slavery was the white man's event, not ours. Black people were participating in slavery, but the white man was the one who was running it. So what this means is that the book of Deuteronomy 28 is the white man's prophecy, as it was his event. The next thing that I want to deal with is King James, as these Hebrews will say that King James was black. But see, this black king named James was able to authorize a translation of his own Bible at the time of 1611. But this is the 1600s and the transatlantic slave trade has already commenced. But also in the 1500s, the so-called white man had the Renaissance, where he whitewashed all of the black images that showed black people in positions of power. So with that being said, how is it that the white man allowed there to be a black king named James? Because a king is in a position of power, but yet the white man whitewashed all images showing black people in positions of power. Not only that, how did the white man allow this black king named James to authorize a translation of his own Bible, which is a book that not only black people associate with, but also white people? But what's even more interesting is that when you research history, there were no major wars or battles that were orchestrated by King James during the time that the 1611 King James Version Bible was published. But see, this black king named James would have had a kingdom, and a kingdom would also have an army. So why did King James not use his army to fight against the slave trade and stop the slave trade? Because King James is black, but black people were being sold by the thousands. So surely this black king named James would have been concerned for his people. But yet there are no recorded wars or battles that was orchestrated by King James during the period of the 1600s. So the only explanation is either King James was a white man or he was a self-hating black man. But see, a self-hating black man is worse than a racist white man, because a self-hating black man who hates his own race will go that extra mile to see the demise of his people, whereas a racist white man will only act on his racism when it is convenient for him, but he won't go that extra mile. So with that being said, are you trying to tell me that you are basing your whole existence on a book authorized by a self-hating black man? As surely a book authorized by a self-hating black man can't be good for black people. Now it makes sense why these Hebrews speak so badly against Africa, as their book was authorized by a self-hating black man. But see, you can't say that you are here to fix black people and that you are for black people, but yet speak so negatively against Africa, as Africa contains the largest amount of black people. So if you are down for black people, by default you also have to be down with Africa. The final thing I want to say is that these Hebrews will say, how can the Bible be the white man's book when it has a black Messiah in it? So in other words, why would the white man give you a book with a black Messiah? But that can be counteracted based on the fact that the white man gave you a black president. Why would the white man give you a black president? As when you understand the way the government really works and their secret societies, the president is just the frontman. He is just a representative. He is not actually the one calling the shots. So the fact that the white man gave you a black president shows that the white man has no problem giving you a black president in order to push his own agenda. So in other words, the white man has no problem giving you a black messiah to propagate his own agenda. But that agenda is to keep you in that Bible. Because if you read that the Bible has a black messiah in it, then you will be less likely to put that Bible down. But Jesus being black still doesn't justify why we should base our whole reality on that Bible, as we still do not have any archaeological evidence that a man named Jesus Christ ever existed. So there is really no difference between a Hebrew Israelite and a Christian, as they both believe in the same God. The only difference is their God is black. But like I said, you can believe whatever you want to believe, but when that belief starts to hinder your progress as a community, then there is a problem. So the fact that these Hebrews are basing their whole reality on the same book that was used to enslave them, all without writing a new book, shows that these Hebrews are nuts, as they are not making any real progress. So we should not be condoning these people, let alone be debating these people, as they are clearly nuts. For example, you would not debate a crazy drunken man on the street. You would just keep it moving, as it would be a waste of time because he is drunk. So my message to black people is, leave these Hebrew Israelites alone, as they are not about real progress, because if they was, they would have wrote a new Bible by now. So these people are not to be taken seriously, as they are clearly nuts. So we should not be wasting our time debating these people, nor should we be wasting our time trying to convert these people, as clearly they are stuck in their ways. But see, I like to offer alternatives over here, as there may be some Hebrews watching this and they may not know what to do right now, as they can't go back to the Hebrew Israelites as they are nuts. But then they may think that the only alternative is Egypt, but they may not like Egypt. But you don't have to like Egypt if you don't want to. Instead, you could line yourself up with the Olmec/Mayan culture, as we actually have archaeological evidence that the Olmec/Mayan civilization actually existed. As we as black people, our lineage on this planet goes deep. As I have already shown you that we are not just limited to Egypt, we have many other cultures to choose from. So it really comes down to the matter of just picking one. So the point here is that if you are going to line yourself up with a culture, at least line yourself up with a culture that actually has archaeological evidence that it actually existed, rather than a book that has no archaeological evidence that the people or events mentioned in the book actually took place. So now, if you are a melanated person and you would overlook all of the cultures I have shown you in this video and go back to reading that Bible, then you are nuts. And my advice would be for you to seek mental help, as clearly you would have to have some kind of mental disorder to overlook all of these cultures for a book that you don't even have access to its original manuscript. Also, it comes down to self-hatred, as you would have to hate yourself to proclaim that your lineage comes from a culture that has really offered nothing to this world apart from a book, as opposed to cultures that have offered arts, mathematics, architecture, and sciences. So my message to the brothers and sisters out there is to put that Bible down and line yourself up with a culture that actually has archaeological evidence that it existed. Lastly, I want to say to the brothers and sisters out there is that there are people in this black conscious community that don't actually want progress. They want to keep you stagnant and keep you distracted. As you will have these people out here who will say, come and join the Hebrew Israelites, where every Saturday we get abused, attacked, and disrespected, all in the name of God. Regardless of the fact that we have been preaching on this same street corner for the last 20 years and not much progress has been made, it's all good because Jesus Christ is on his way. But then you got these other people who would say, let's take a trip to Egypt, where you can go to Luxor, Karnak, and Giza. Regardless of the fact that black people have been going to Egypt since the 80s, come and take a trip with me and I will show you things that you have never seen before, because I am Mr. All Access. So my point here is that there are people in this conscious community who don't actually want progress. Their aim is to keep the confusion going. But one thing that I will say to any of those people is that I am watching you, and if any of you lead my people to a slaughter, then I'm ending careers. Alright then, I just wanted to put that out there. Let's go to the last one now. Conclusion. The serpent is not evil, but in actuality, the symbol of the serpent holds the highest divinity on this planet. The ancients saw great divinity within the serpent, among all other wild animals, and because of this, they chose to base their culture around the serpent. Also, there are many more cultures on this planet that saw divinity within the serpent, but the reason why I specifically chose these cultures is because they had such a strong impact on modern culture, as these cultures brought forth sciences, arts, mathematics, and erected monuments that are still standing to this day. But the common denominator between these cultures is that they all identified with the serpent. So to all you people out there who still think that the serpent is evil, you must ask yourself, why did all of these advanced civilizations see divinity within the serpent? Even if you refuse to believe the truth about the serpent, you can't deny that these were advanced cultures. So if it's a question of who is right, modern man or ancient man, it's really a no-brainer. But I made this video to really dispel and debunk all of the negative propaganda that people have been spreading about the serpent. As you have these people out here who are making videos about how they don't like the serpent, and they are using certain religious books to justify their hatred for the serpent. But see, I myself don't like dogs, but you don't see me making videos saying that the dog is the spawn of Satan. But yet this is what these people are doing to the serpent. Some of these people are even going out their way to find incriminating images of the serpent. In some cases, these people are even editing these pictures themselves to make them look the most incriminating as possible. So obviously, these people have some type of agenda that is not bound within truth, but instead negative emotions. But that is not the only propaganda that these people are spreading, as you got these people out here who are trying to create negative stigmas about veganism. These people are trying to make it seem like there is something wrong with being vegan. So these people will say things like, you need taurine, you need taurine. But the truth is that taurine doesn't do shit. But I am saying that from my own experience, as I took the guy's advice and went out and got some taurine supplements, used it for a few months and it didn't do shit. Why? Because taurine is a conditionally essential amino acid, meaning that the only time you need it is under dire circumstances. So clearly these people are going out of their way to find small things to discredit veganism just because it didn't work for them. So we must question the intentions of a person that would do this. But also there is a spiritual reason to why it may seem that you have less energy, but I will speak on that in another video. Also, a lot of people, when they think of certain negative characteristics such as deceit or dishonesty, they will often personify these characteristics with this serpent. But the truth is that the serpent is not associated with those characteristics. As a serpent doesn't hide, a serpent is a predator, so a more accurate personification would be a rat. As a rat creeps through your back door, a rat sneaks in through the holes and the cracks, a rat hides during the day and comes out at night, a rat travels through the sewers and bins for its survival. So a person who does dirty business, a person who sneaks behind your back, and a person who is a swindler, we should actually call them a rat and not a serpent. So the rat is the deceiver, the rat is the liar, as when it eats your food in your house, you think that it is someone else. At first you don't suspect that it is the rat, so you are being deceived into thinking that it wasn't the rat. So all of this negative stigma that the serpent is getting is really based on Western culture. For example, in the West, they will make movies like Ratatouille, where they glorify the lifestyle of a rat. But then on the flip side, they will make movies like Snakes on a Plane, where they will make it seem like the serpent is an evil animal causing havoc. But as I already said, the serpent is a predator, so any predator in a confined space with humans would cause havoc. So obviously they are just trying to demonize the serpent. As this Western man has a distorted mindset, because in the West he glorifies the dog when the dog is no more than an oversized rat. So my point here is that we need to stop dragging the serpent's name through the dirt and associating its name with negative connotations, as the serpent is a divine animal, whereas an animal such as a rat would be a more accurate personification of those traits. Also, what you need to understand is that the serpent is a reptile and a reptile is a reptilian. So when you hear all this talk about reptilians and reptilians being evil, they are just trying to demonize the serpent. Also, you may hear people say that some of these leaders and celebrities are reptilians. But see, what these people are doing is they are just twisting mythology for their own agenda. As I already told you that the Naga is not actually a real being. The Naga is simply referring to the Kundalini energy. And through the awakening of the Kundalini is how you become a Naga. But for those people who watched the original upload of my Kundalini video, then you should already know what that means. But I'm not going to go too deep into that right now. I'll speak more on that in another video. But after this video, there really should be nothing left to be said, as this video has completely debunked this grand deception once and for all. So anybody who makes negative videos towards the serpent after this obviously has some type of agenda, and we should question this person's intentions. Also, in this video, I dealt strictly with the information. I didn't resort to calling people names or calling people stupid, as I myself don't need to do that. Because if I have a problem with somebody else's video, I hit the drawing board, get the books out, and I make a video that debunks what they said. But see, the reason why these people do that is because they don't actually have the information to back up what they are saying, so they resort to name calling. But again, I don't need to do that, as I am able to bring forth information that makes you look stupid. So that is all I have to say on that aspect right there. Now, last but not least, here are my sources. I will also list the websites used in the description box below. The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom by Mark Amaru Pinkham. Embodying Osiris, The Secrets of Alchemical Transformation by Tom F. Cavalli. The Kemetic Tree of Life, Ancient Egyptian Metaphysics and Cosmology for Higher Consciousness by Muata Ashbe. Handbook of Inca Mythology by Paul Richard Steele and Catherine J. Allen. Now, out of these books right here, I highly recommend that you check out The Kemetic Tree of Life by Muata Ashbe, The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom by Mark Amaru Pinkham, and Embodying Osiris by Tom F. Cavalli, as the combination of these three books would definitely raise your level of consciousness. As the book The Return of the Serpents of Wisdom gives you the history before ancient Egypt, then the book Embodying Osiris gives you an insight into the psychology of the ancients. Then the book The Kemetic Tree of Life gives you the metaphysics and sciences of ancient Egypt. Also, for my American brothers and sisters who acknowledge the serpent as divine but don't resonate with Egypt, then I would highly recommend you get the book Olmec, Colossal Masterworks of Ancient Mexico. And I would recommend that you do further research into the Mayan culture, as the truth is that we are not all African. Lastly, I want to take this time to announce that I will be starting a new channel, which will be a more Afrocentric channel, as I feel like I need to focus more on black people, as there is still a lot of work to be done in raising the consciousness of black people. But I will still be uploading videos to this channel, but rather than upload the Afrocentric videos to this channel, I will just upload them to the Afrocentric channel. So as melanated people, if you like my video called Black People Love Their Struggle, then make sure to subscribe to my new channel, as over there I will be dealing with black solutions and information to liberate black people. But the channel name will be called Tahuti Kepera Iteru. It is the same as my regular name, but if you notice, I added the Kepera. The reason being is because the god Kepera is a symbol of rebirth and the symbol of becoming. And on that channel, I will be rebirthing black people and transforming them into the divine state they once had. Alright, so make sure to subscribe to that channel. I will leave a link to that channel on this video. Alright, so that is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Peace and stay safe out there.